Good afternoon and welcome to today's Ad Week webinar, Get Ready for CTV's Ad-Supported Transformation, where we'll be covering everything marketers need to know to align their New Year's resolutions with CTV's ad revolution. Love that rhyme. Today's webinar is sponsored by MNTN. I'm Danielle Moore, Senior Manager here with AdWeek's Content Studio, and I'll be your host today. Before we begin, I want to take a moment to make sure everyone knows what to expect from today's webinar and is familiar with the features of our platform. The actual presentation should go somewhere in the 20-minute range, after which we will have time for audience Q&A. So if at any point you have a question for our speaker today, just use that Q&A tool beneath the video window on your screen, and we'll get to as many questions as we can after the end of the presentation. Also, it's not too late to invite your colleagues to join us at today's webinar. About 15 minutes ago, you received a final reminder email from us. In there, you'll find a link to the webinar registration page that you can share with your colleagues. There's still plenty of time for them to join us live today, but if they can't, today's webinar is being recorded, and they can always catch the on-demand version. In fact, that on-demand recording will be made available to all registrants. We'll be sending you a link later today when that's live, around 3:30 Eastern or so. And if you would like a PDF of today's slide deck, you can find that in the Event Resources area on your screen. As always, if you enjoyed today's webinar, definitely check out the full AdWeek webinars calendar at adweek.com/webinars. You'll see what we have coming up and also get access to our archive of on-demand webinars as well. Now, let me introduce you to today's speaker. We're very happy to be joined by Jessie Hasse, Senior Customer Success Manager at MNTN. Jessie specializes in shaping big picture strategy and advocating for customer success at MNTN. She is passionate about finding creative solutions and executing full lifecycle management. Fun fact, today is actually Jessie's birthday, so we're particularly grateful that she's taking the time to be with us today. We've got some great content to dive into, so without further ado, let me bring Jessie up on screen to get us started here. Welcome, Jessie, and happy birthday. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Danielle. Thank you guys all for joining today. Just to reintroduce myself, my name is Jessie Hasse, and I'm on the customer success team here at MNTN. I've been with MNTN for almost 2 years now, and I have to say, in those 2 years, the CTV landscape has transformed so drastically, even in such a short amount of time. So I can only imagine what's in store for us in 2023. So we're going to get to that and so much more in today's presentation. All right, so if there's one key takeaway that I want you guys to walk away with today, it's that CTV, which is poised to have a pivotal year, is a performance channel that marketers should be looking at to make the most of their 2023 planning. If you're not already taking advantage of CTV, now's the time. Okay, so diving in a little deeper, and just to set the pace for the agenda today, we're going to really look at 3 kind of pillars with topics. The first and foremost is just going to be how the TV landscape is continuing to shift and evolve in 2023, what marketers should know about setting up a connected television campaign, and then how CTV's digital roots can provide you with a wealth of data heading into 2023 planning and truly beyond. Okay, so jumping right on in, it's really important to recognize that the TV viewing audience is shifting. July marked a key shift in the TV viewing environment, and Nielsen reported that streaming made up the largest share of US TV viewing. Now, this is the first time that it's actually beat out its linear counterpart, which is truly huge, especially for us as marketers and performance marketers. When we think about where our ad spend is going when it comes to video, I'm sure most of us likely think linear TV. And unfortunately, CTV only accounts for about 18% of video ad dollars. So there's a huge disconnect and a miss in terms of where you're spending your ad dollars when it comes to video content. And with that, only 70% of viewers are not accessible, 70% of viewers are not accessible by linear TV. So there's a really big opportunity here for advertisers to take advantage of the audience shifting that's taking place in people going to streaming sites. And really, the developments don't stop there. CTV is continuing to evolve and become a more attractive option for advertisers. The broad appeal and expansive reach of streaming is just continuing to grow. I know that everyone you guys probably know is binge watching the latest and greatest TV show. I know I find myself at home on the couch streaming and binging TV shows for hours on end. So really, streaming is just starting to become a makeup of our society and just our everyday conversation. Everyone at home is around, especially now for the holidays, likely gathering together with their family and friends, streaming their favorite TV shows. And of course, 'tis the season for giving. So a lot of people will likely be getting streaming devices who haven't necessarily streamed before. So even more people will be streaming in 2023. And not only that, but people are just continuing to cut the cord. I'm sure you guys have all heard, but top streaming sites have recently announced their plans to add in ad-supported tiers in 2023. In particular, Netflix, which historically has been a streaming service that hasn't supported ad-supported tiers, made their announcement recently after following their poor earnings call that they're going to be adding in an ad-supported tier. Disney Plus is also joining the ad-supported club, and they're aligning with its other ad-supported channels like Hulu and ESPN. These are some pretty big names out there, Netflix and Disney Plus. So the fact that they're shifting to adding in ad-supported tiers is a really huge opportunity for marketers as we head into 2023. So with that, and then as the year comes to an end, it's really important that you do add TV to your resolutions. I know right now we're wrapping up Q4 and the holidays. We just had a really big Cyber Monday, Black Friday week. And so as marketers, we're really wanting to just wrap up the rest of this year strong. But it's really important to know that we don't want you to miss out on this opportunity to add CTV to your marketing mix heading into the new year. We want to help you set up for success so that this won't be a resolution you abandon before the end of January. Now, before executing your CTV campaigns, I often get asked by my clients, what's really the first thing that they need to do when they start to think about adding CTV to their marketing mix? And really, first and foremost, what I always like to say is it comes down to what are your business goals? What comes first to you as you're thinking about 2023? The great thing about connected TV is that it goes beyond that broad brand awareness play that traditional linear TV usually does. And it really allows you to focus on your key performance metrics. So rather than focusing on awareness or impressions, you can really optimize towards your key performance metrics for your business goals. Whether that's site visits to conversions, you really have the opportunity here to select which KPI is most important for your business. I know I have a lot of clients that I work with ranging in different product offerings. And I have some clients that are in e-commerce, and for them, revenue is really important. So in that case, a ROAS goal might make the most sense for them. I also work with a ton of B2B clients that are really focused on overall leads. And so for them, a cost per acquisition might make more sense. So again, it really comes down to what your business goals are when it comes to setting up your first campaign. And then in addition, when you are thinking about adding in that CTV platform, really is important to focus on one that's going to automatically optimize thousands of times throughout the campaign. This is really going to help you ensure that you're hitting your performance goals and truly outperforming human optimizations. We're going to find you the right price that's going to make the biggest impact. And as you continue to run your campaigns over time on a more evergreen, always-on basis, probably similar to that of search and social, the system is just going to continue to learn what works and what doesn't. And ultimately, your campaign is just going to become more efficient and have a greater ROAS over time. So again, really focusing on the fact that we can make your CTV platform automatically optimize is going to be crucial. And from our own experience, we've seen that brands that do end up switching from a partially or manually optimized system to Mountain's performance TV, those people saw a 91% increase in ROAS and a 20% decrease in CPA. These are pretty drastic numbers. And really, for me, the key takeaway of this is that automated optimizations really do drive strong performance. So you should definitely be making the switch now. All right, so once you have determined the focus of your campaign, What you'll want to do next is figure out who is the audience that you are going to be reaching with your campaign. As we talked about a little bit before, CTV allows you to be as broad or as specific as you want when defining your target audience. Here at Mountain, we use Oracle Data Cloud, which will give you access to tens of thousands of different audiences that you can plug and play and be really versatile when it comes to reaching your audience. A lot of market segments can include competitor conquesting, people who are in market, maybe recently visited a specific site, or recent purchasers, for example. So there's really a ton of different audiences that you can focus on based off of behavior trends, interest trends, and even just demographics as well. And with this audience-first targeting, it helps account for the fragmentation of the streaming environment. So you can really reach your audience wherever they're adjusting their viewing behaviors. I'm sure you guys all know, but people tend to bounce around from channel to channel. I know that there's times when I'm watching HGTV, for example, and then there's other times that I'm binging a show on Peacock. And with linear, historically, linear has been a little bit more contextual, but with CTV, the best thing about CTV is that we're able to reach that user regardless of the content that they're consuming and regardless of when they're bouncing around. So in addition to the top of funnel and kind of looking at a more prospecting play, one of the other beauties of CTV is that you have the ability to target a full funnel approach, really focusing on hitting your consumers throughout the entire customer journey. So of course, we already talked about utilizing a prospecting campaign that's going to target more of that net new user that you're going after. But then you can also go a little bit further down the funnel and focus on maybe a mid-funnel approach and utilize a CRM audience. There's a lot of my clients that use CRM and they might use it to focus on re-engagement. So if a user hasn't possibly purchased from them in the last 6 months to a year, they'll use a CRM list to target those individuals. You can also use a CRM for loyalty or even retention or a win-back campaign. If you have contract renewals coming up, or people have recently opted out, you can target them through a CRM campaign and then have your messaging more aligned with that audience. And then finally, you can, of course, utilize CTV for retargeting. So really going after the users that are already familiar with your brand, have maybe gone to your site a few times, but haven't fully converted. Now you can retarget them on CTV and really get them to come back and do that conversion. I have a client of mine who's in the fragrances business, and they're really utilizing this full funnel approach. So they're using prospecting, going after audiences of people who maybe have shopped at West Elm, who have shopped at CB2, look at candles, and then they have a CRM list of their loyalty members. So they use that CRM audience. And then, of course, they then use a retargeting audience to get people to come back and purchase their fragrances. So really, by segmenting your audience, being strategic with your budget, and doing creative that's going to be specific to the messaging of each of these audiences is not only going to help maximize your campaign performance, but it really will help you hit your business goals down the line. Now, the final step before launching your campaign is to upload your creative. The good news is that you don't necessarily need to reinvent the wheel here to get started on CTV. You don't need to necessarily have any sort of Super Bowl commercial. With CTV, it's really versatile and you can really plug and play the videos to get started. You can use videos that you already have used on other platforms like social, for example, and quickly add that to your CTV platform. I know I have a client who recently launched CTV and they had a user-generated content or UGC style video that was really successful for them on social. So we brought that to CTV and now they're utilizing CTV with that video offering and it's proving to be successful. So there's a lot of opportunity here to just use content that you already have live on other channels. And of course, if you don't have video content on hand, there's plenty of other non-agency solutions that can help you create one-off original video with a lower price tag. For example, here at Mountain, we have a new product offering called our Creative as a Subscription, or CAS. And with this, You can get creative at no additional cost right alongside your media spend. So it's truly a win-win. And this also allows you to launch your campaign with multiple creatives at hand and allows you to do different creative refreshes throughout the quarter so that you can beat creative fatigue. So if you're not necessarily sure what strategy will work best for your audience in 2023, the great thing is that you have a huge opportunity right now to do a lot of testing prior to the new year. As I talked about a little bit earlier on, creative testing is a really great opportunity for you to test to see which creative will work best for your audiences and help them ultimately convert and drive performance. And with CTV, it really allows you to get real-time data so you can see immediate results and then adjust accordingly. I have a lot of clients that are utilizing creative testing in their campaigns, and they're doing it throughout their entire campaign life. And they'll test different creatives. So for example, you could do creatives that are focused on maybe a lifestyle video versus a product video. You could also do a single family shot versus a family shot. You can even test different CTAs to see which CTAs are going to get people to come to your site. And you can look at testing video length as well. Doing a 30-second versus a 15-second is a great example of doing different creative testing. In my experience, when I've worked with my clients on video testing for 30-second and 15-second, one of the things that we found is that 15 seconds is usually best if your goal is looking to drive people to the website, while 30 seconds is best if your goal is to drive leads, sales, conversions, aka you'll want more airtime. But again, A/B testing is really going to be the best way forward for you to understand which is going to work best for your specific audience. Along with A/B testing, there's so much more data that you guys can gather from CTV. Connected TV's digital roots really does provide you with a wealth of data that can be extremely valuable for your 2023 planning. It covers everything from your performance goals to which networks are performing best, and so much more. We're going to go ahead and take a look through some of the dashboards that you'll have access to when running connected television with Mountain. One of the first reporting, and honestly is a fan favorite for a lot of my clients, is the network reporting. This is really going to provide you with that level of transparency into the different TV networks that you're running on and where your ads are showing. So you'll see full transparency and again, be able to reference your KPIs against that network level reporting. So you can see conversions that came through on specific networks, your CPA, your ROAS, and so much more. And then we also have an audience segment report, which is another fan favorite of ours. This is really great because this allows you to track which audiences are performing guests, even if they're in the same campaign. So it'll allow you to compare the performance tied to each of those individual interests, behaviors, intents, etc. For example, I have a client that is really focused on New Year's right now. And so we have a bunch of segments that we're testing. A few of those are people who are interested in healthy eating, who frequent the gym, or even our New Year's resolution makers. So we have all of these segments in their campaign. And with this audience segment reporting, we're able to evaluate the performance of each of those segments and see which one is really driving the best performance. So again, just another level of detail that you guys can get utilizing CTV. And then I know we've talked a little bit about this as well, but we also have our creative reporting. And so with this creative reporting, it's really going to provide you with those real-time immediate results of how your creative is performing. It'll allow you to do different A/B testings to help inform your next round of creative development. And again, as I mentioned with A/B testing, once you have a clear winner of your creative, you can then utilize that creative and make iterations based off of that. And you can, of course, then use the best video and use that on your other devices and your other platforms as you see the performance that comes through with the creative reporting. So a really great option here as you're thinking about evaluating different creative and which works best with your audiences and the messaging as well. So I know that was a lot of information to digest. And to summarize all of that, here are really the key takeaways. One is that while the streaming landscape has been continuously evolving, 2023 will be the first full year that a majority of TV viewers elect to watch via streaming, and that key premium channels like Netflix and Disney Plus will introduce their ad offerings. Two is that CTV is a performance channel that can be auto-optimized towards your key initiatives, from site visits to conversions to ROAS and so much more. And finally, setting up a CTV campaign is easy, I promise. All you need to do is set up your performance goals, select your target audiences, and upload the video and let the platform do its thing. Advertisers can head into 2023 prepared to make the most of this growing platform. All right, so that wraps up the presentation of everything we wanted to walk through today. Go ahead and kick it back over to Danielle to do some Q&A.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing those insights with us, Jessie. As you mentioned, we do have time to take a few questions from the audience today. We'll get to as many questions as we can over the next 5 to 10 minutes or so here. To our audience members, please just know that if we don't get to your question today, we always make sure they get forwarded over to our sponsor so they have the opportunity to possibly reply offline. First, a couple of quick reminders here from Adweek. Today's webinar has been recorded and will be available on demand later this afternoon. We'll be emailing everyone a link to that recording, so keep an eye out for it later today. And if you would like a copy of today's slides, you can find a PDF of those in the event resources area on your screen as well, so feel free to grab them. All right, let's get to some of these questions. So our first question here, Jessie. Earlier, you talked about how business goals are the best place to start when diving into CTV for the first time, right? As they'll obviously influence the strategy. So that's a great starting point for people to be aware of. But this question is really looking to dive deeper into what the process looks like on your end. So could you expand a little bit more on how do you help your clients determine which performance goals they should optimize for within their campaigns?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when I'm thinking about setting up the goals for my clients, I think it's really important to just kind of take a step back, not necessarily just focus on CTV, but really their business goals at hand. What are they trying to achieve in 2023 at a really large scale? Is it ROAS? Is it revenue, like I was mentioning? Is it more of like a lead-based sort of focus? And even diving into some of the harder questions, right? Of like, what are your business objectives? What are those revenue goals that you guys have heading into this year? And then once we have more of that larger business goal and objective, you can then I like to hone in and understand, again, what does that marketing mix look like? What other channels are you running on? How are you evaluating channels on across the board on your marketing mix? And then based off of that, getting just further granular and focusing with CTV, again, knowing that it is a performance direct response channel. This isn't like linear where it's just awareness. We're really focused on CPA and ROAS. So once I have a better idea of what your business goals are and what your overarching goals are, we can hone in on, a ROAS being the best target, CPA being a best target, or even site visit as well.
Got it. Thank you for that. Our next question here. So you highlighted the full funnel advantage of CTV earlier, right? Being able to hit at different parts of that customer journey and creating a seamless experience. Within that, there's also the opportunity to segment audiences in a sophisticated way, as you were describing. But at the campaign level, do you recommend testing one audience per campaign, or would you test multiple? How would you approach that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I always recommend testing as many audiences as possible. You can kind of take two different approaches. One is doing it within one campaign, as you talked about. And I mentioned it a little bit earlier on, where I have a client who's really focused on the new year right now, and they're doing a bunch of different New Year's audiences within that one campaign. The healthy lifestyle. They're even looking at people who have, our Whole Foods obsession eaters, so to speak. And then utilizing our audience segment report, we're then able to evaluate the audiences and see which one is performing better. So that's one way that you can do it. Another way that I've done with my clients is actually doing 2 prospecting campaigns, for example. And if you did 2 prospecting campaigns, making sure everything in terms of like the creative is all the same, but then doing different audiences from there. So you could have one audience focused on maybe competitor conquesting and really just have the audience be around, like-minded stores. And then a secondary audience in your second prospecting campaign that maybe is focused on more attributes of your initial demographic. And then based off of the performance of the campaigns, you can start to get a look at which one is performing better and which audience ultimately is driving the best performance.
Got it. Great example and a great tactic to think about testing in the new year, especially as, I feel like the new year, new me philosophy at the beginning of the year, brand allegiances, store allegiances can definitely be swayed by new mentalities, right? So it all ties in there. Our next question here has to do with timing, which of course is always top of mind for us marketers and advertisers, even when we're not trying to march towards those end of year goals or keep up with our New Year's resolutions, as we've been talking about. So the question is CTV a better option during my key promotional periods or as an always on channel? And if it's an always on channel, in your opinion, is it easy to turn on and off? Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, definitely. So the way that I like to think about CTV is that it really should be made as an always on or evergreen approach. Really want to think about this as an extension, so to speak, of your social campaigns and your search campaigns. I talk with a lot of my advertisers and they don't turn on and off those sorts of campaigns, so to speak, and we should treat CTV the same way. So really having an always on evergreen approach is really going to be the best strategy. And going back to the automated optimizations, if you keep your campaigns always on, it's just going to help our system learn and optimize and be more efficient over time. The one thing I will say is that while you can have this always on approach, I get it. I know that there's, peak sales throughout the year that a lot of advertisers have. We just came off of Black Friday, Cyber Monday, where I know a lot of my clients wanted to kind of boost spend during that. So while you can have an always on approach, that's not to say that you can increase spend during a specific holiday or increase during a specific, a key time for your site and your sales. But again, just making sure that you have an always on strategy is really going to be the best fit forward.
Absolutely. Yeah. Sounds like that's the best way to maximize learnings and take advantage of the sort of automated optimizations that CTV is known for, and that its linear counterpart is perhaps not, that's not the advantage there. So I think it's always good to call out the differences between the two, right? Because while we say CTV and TV are very different, in fact. So appreciate that. Our last question here. So I think that this is a good one because a lot of the info you've shared today is super beginner friendly, right? So, for people who might be trying CTV for the first time or putting it on their goals for next year. But for those in the audience who might have already dipped a toe into those CTV waters, might have a campaign or two running, but haven't necessarily gotten the chance to dive into testing extensively, whatever the case may be for those non-first time CTV buyers, what's one thing that you're telling your clients who are already using CTV to keep in mind for next year?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think you really alluded to it as well. I would say for me, when I think about my conversations with my clients, is really lean into this idea that you can do so many different testing on connected television and you can get real-time data, especially if you're working with Mountain, you have results, within the day. So you can really lean into the fact that as you're getting these real-time results, you can make changes and quickly adjust and pivot as you see results coming. So for a lot of my clients that maybe aren't doing any sort of testing, that would be my recommendation, is really making sure that you continue to, as CTV evolves, you're continuing to evolve your campaign. No longer are we just doing like one creative and one audience and you just let it go forever. It's really important to just continue to change up your audiences, see which audiences are really working, test again, like in market versus, I think we were talking about earlier, in market versus, maybe your general assumption of your target audience, or even again with creative, you can test different time limits. So if you wanted to do a 30-second versus a 15-second, that's a really great quick way that you could just cut an existing ad and do different testing. So as I have conversations with my clients, I would say the most successful and really like the one thing that I would have them take advantage of is doing testing and utilizing that in your CTV campaigns, just to kind of continue to help boost with your performance and help you ultimately have a more efficient and effective campaign.
Got it. Thank you for that. Definitely sounds like testing is key here. Unfortunately, that is all the time we have for questions today. I would like to thank our speaker, Jessie, as well as our sponsor, Mountain. Some final reminders from Adweek. Make sure you download the slides from the Event Resources tab and check your email for a link to that on-demand recording, which will be available later today. As always, if you enjoyed today's webinar, be sure to check out the Adweek webinars calendar to learn more about our upcoming events at adweek.com/webinars. Again, huge thank you to Jessie for being here and letting us pick her brain on her birthday for all these great insights. Thank you to our audience for joining us today. And as always, we look forward to seeing everyone at an upcoming Adweek webinar.